Kia ora everyone. This is why I do love Instagram. I don't have too much negative stuff going on in my Instagram. I curate it that way, I guess. But I don't even know how or why I follow Aaron. But Aaron, your page gives me so much joy, and I'm so stoked that we get to interact. For a while there, we weren't too far away from each other, but now there's a big great ocean between us. But mate, tell us about, I can hear beautiful birds. Tell us about your setting and your outlook, what you were looking at. I can see the reflection a little bit there.
Yeah. I am on the Sunshine Coast in Queensland, Australia, and I'm sitting on my balcony looking out into the forest. I have a pocket of paperbark wetlands right beside me, and I'm overlooking a large horse property in the western parts of the Sunshine Coast at the base of the mountains. So it's quite rural and very rainforesty. It's raining here at the moment. You can probably hear the birds. They're very happy, completely unaware of what's going on in the world right now. And this place gives me that feeling too. So it's my little sanctuary. It's very tranquil.
And where did the purpose come from to move to this sanctuary?
Well, it like a lot of things, and this might be quite relevant for what's going on in the world now, it came from a separation of my family unit. I went through a separation 3 years ago, and that forced me to make some big life decisions. And one of those for the first time was, well, where should I live? What sort of property should I choose for myself and for my two children, moving into a single dad paradigm? So I just asked myself, do I like town? Do I like the city? Do I like the country? I'm a surfer, so I love the waves. But ultimately, I settled out here because I needed to do some healing, and I wanted space, and I wanted a tranquil vibe, just so that I could ground myself and work through a bit of trauma that I knew I would have to deal with, some grieving, going through a separation as you do. So it's a little cabin at the base of the mountains, and it reminded me of a Stephen King novel, the kind of place a writer would hide away in the hills. And I've been out here for 3 years, kind of just doing a lot of time alone and healing and just working on myself. So it's been great for that. And it resonates well for my kids too. They've got a bit of bush around them and a bit of nature. So yeah, I'm really enjoying it.
Okay. So mate, as I said, I don't know why or how I ended up following you, but it's in a weird kind of way, you've given me a mirror for a journey to go on. Now, cat's out of the bag now. In the last conversation I just had before with Andy Ross, he sort of let it be known that I've been going through some emotional and relationship problems myself, on top of all that's been going on and the moving and things like that. But to have someone who's been through it before, and from my perspective outside looking in, and I'm sure there's been some dark times, you've handled it the best way you possibly can. How much forgiveness does it take to remind yourself that you're doing a good job and the best job you possibly can do? A bit like the people trying to tell us what to do with this virus right now. Go with the information that you've got at the time and have compassion for the decisions that you make can only be based on what you know at the time.
Yeah, it's really hard because you go down this rabbit hole of you're in an emotional tornado when you go through a separation. And it's almost like, for me, I had competing voices. I had this model in my brain of what a family would look like. And I was raised in a traditional family with my brother and sister. My mum and dad stayed together. So I'd always looked at family being together as extremely important. And I had this sort of Australian family model that I was orientated towards and attached to. And I tried to, suppress certain aspects of myself to fit within that model. And after a while, I realized it was an unhappy situation. So I wanted to make it a conscious process. And you talk about forgiveness. I think the starting point for forgiveness for me was letting myself feel okay with the fact that the model wasn't for me, and that wasn't a huge failure on my part, because initially I felt like I'd failed because I couldn't make this model work. So that's where the forgiveness started. It was feeling okay with myself for letting go of that model, and from there starting to rebuild a new life. And you go through phases with that, and the initial shock of being away from your children, as an active father and somebody who's around their children a lot, and loves being with them daily, the emotional torture of that initially is extremely difficult to manage. But day by day I worked through that, and what helped me most was having some personal practices that I could tune into and ground into, and listen to my soul, I guess you would say, and hear that voice rather than the egoic voice that was telling me, oh, you failed because you didn't make this model work. So there were these two competing voices, and the more I tuned in and grounded to the soul, the more my path sort of revealed itself to me, and I could work through the more traumatic aspects, like being away from the kids.
Mm-hmm. And mate, I don't know whether it's a flow in or an outflow out, but and it's something I've written about a few times in blogs, is when you go down this path of professionalism, and you've spoken about it too, you have another model, and that's what a professional looks like, and the things that the professional does, and the time and energy that they input into their job and career. And like I said, I don't know if it's a flow in or a flow out of that model, which you spoke about, being a lawyer and having a, what do you guys call law practice? Is that what do you guys define?
Yeah.
The place?
Yeah, law practice, law firm.
Law firm. Yeah, that's it. Firm.
Yeah, the firm. Tom Cruise.
Yeah. Is that when he started singing his undies?
Yeah, that was Risky Business. The firm, and then you had A Few Good Men. Colonel Jessup, did you order the cornbread? You're goddamn right, I did.
Yeah. You brought out the word ego there. How weird is it to let go of the models, and how that speaks to an ego, a place to sort of identify by, which really is just smoke and mirrors.
Totally. And it's totally relevant to the relationship thing, because through that experience, I realized a lot of my relationship modeling was conditioning around the way I grew up, the families I saw, the way family was represented to me in media and on the movies. And, I was always led to believe that, the kids in separated families had it hard or were hard done by, or that was a bad thing. So there was a shift there in my thinking, and the way it's linked to being a professional, you start to then pay attention to everything in your life. And well, what about my profession? Is that something that I've chosen on a soul level because it's my true calling and the way I can be of best service to the world and to the people around me? Or was that a conditional model as well? And did I choose it because of bloody Tom Cruise, driving that Ferrari, banging supermodels. Um, he's largely to blame for my choice to become a lawyer in those Hollywood movies, and also social conditioning around security, money. Look, this is and respect, title. You'll be, you know, when I'm at barbecues and people say, and I hate the question, people say, "What do you do, Aaron?" And I say, "I'm a lawyer." And, you know, you get a reaction. People do go, "Ooh, you must be smart," or "Ooh, nice," you know. Whereas if I said, I don't know, I'm a garbage man or something, and no offense to garbage men or anything like this, but this is the social stigmas that we have. We label everything, and you know, you'll get a totally different reaction. So the ego craves that, and I think when you have these huge paradigm shifts, like relationship breakdown or change, you start to look at other aspects of your life too. And I'm going through this process now. Like, why did I become a lawyer? Is it what actually I should be doing with myself? And now that I've had some practice with letting go of a conditioned model, all of a sudden I have some experience with this, and I know that it's okay to let go of certain dogma if I tune into my inner voice and actually listen to that one and let it guide me for a while, rather than the opinions of everybody else and the desire for that reaction at the barbecue from a stranger. You know, oh, a lawyer, oh yes, very nice. So
yeah, I guess for me, I also bring up, you know, Boston legal, and it's kind of like the meme of lawyers. Whereas when it comes to optometrists, people kind of go, they do that same reaction, like, oh, and then they're like, what the hell does an optometrist do and look like? I just know it's a professional thing, but what does optometrist even mean? And then they look at me and they go, are you sure? And I guess that the facade that we both sort of create outwardly is to not try and be labelled by that and try to be diverse. And that's, I guess, why we both hate that question, what do you do? And yeah, it's don't put me in the box of that thing. And I'm quite grateful that, one, I don't know, look like an optometrist, and two, people don't really know what optometrist means. Whereas lawyer, like you say, there's plenty of movies and TV shows out there to meme the lawyer, but then when you actually look down the barrel of lawyer, it's like, what legality legislation do you look for? What are your fine details? What are your certain set of skills, to quote another movie?
yeah,
That's that's the deeper
man,
level of the lawyer.
totally. And I don't know about you in optometry, whether you knew a great deal about what it would be that you would be doing once you got into that profession. And for me, rather naively, I was 16 when the careers advisor gave me a university application form and said, we think you should go to university and you've got to start to choose what it is you want to do. And I was 16 and I graduated high school. I was 17 years old, and I'd seen a Tom Cruise movie. And this is my honest reason for becoming a lawyer. I'd seen The Firm and A Few Good Men. It was 1998, and I ticked the box for that reason. My second choice was PE teacher, because he was the funnest. He was the funnest teacher at school, and I thought, well, you know, if I don't get the red Ferrari as a supermodel, being a PE teacher would be pretty cool. I was 17. I'd never been in a law firm. I had no idea what lawyers actually did, and even throughout my degree, which took 5 years, I didn't really end up going into a law firm until sort of the end of the degree to sort of check it out and start to do a little part-time work. And I remember the first day I started work, my very first week, I got my full-time job. I'd made it. I'd built it up to this pinnacle of the mountain, the summit. You'd been climbing Everest your whole life. You're summiting this thing and you're getting closer and closer. And I got the job offer. The big day was coming. And I went out and I bought a cheap suit. and a cheap tie and a little briefcase. And I slicked my hair back just like Tom Cruise. And I went to work for the first day, and I was beaming with pride. And I'm like, I'm about to get that moment. I'm to stand on the pinnacle of Everest. This has taken me my entire life since I was 4 years old, put into kindergarten, through just year after year after year of school, 5 years of university, exam after exam after exam. And I get to work this first day, and there were all these miserable people everywhere, all around me. It wasn't this, hurrah, you made it, yeah. It was this depressing anticlimax that was heartbreaking. And I remember thinking, oh, maybe I'm just off. Maybe I'm just not, I'm reading it the wrong way. And I got to the end of my first week. I was in the city and I was commuting to and from work. And, you know, this is before, I don't even think I had a mobile phone then. And I called my mum from a payphone. And I said, Mum, I think something's wrong. Because she was all proud of me, and my family are all proud of me. And I'd made it, you know. And there's something wrong, Mum. She's like, well, describe your day. What's it like? And I said, well, you know, this is what it's like. I get there. I sit down all day. I'm having trouble staying awake. It's incredibly boring. Everybody seems sort of mildly unhappy, really down. And she said, oh, no, that's completely normal. That's what it's like. Just, you'll get used to it, you know? And so when I look back, I'll be 40 next year, and I'm still in law. So that was nearly 20 years ago. And that decision, that box I ticked when I was 16, 17, I'm still in it. I'm still living that choice. But I am questioning it, and I'm questioning it deeply, and I'm starting to listen to that and pay attention to that a lot more, because I had it on day one, and I'm like, no, you'll get used to it. It'll be fine. And it's just getting louder and louder. And I think I've got to do something about this, because you can't just go your whole life feeling like something's wrong. So I've made a few pivots and made some changes to make it more bearable. But yeah, this is my current challenge, and this is what I'm working on at the moment. So thanks for asking me about that.
No, it's I have a big laugh when you said about being the PE teacher. My dad was a physics teacher for a good 20 years, so probably till I was about 14 or 15, he was a physics teacher. And so up until the moment that I found optometry and thought, shit, that's cool, well, I'm going to do that. I too wanted to be a PE teacher in Queenstown, basically so I could go skiing for half the year, and then the other, you know, I guess it was 2 terms, do outdoor education pretty much in and around Queenstown. And it's really funny you say that. They seem to be the most fun person, and I'm sure talking to PE teachers now, they'll probably tell you a different reality of that with lesson plans and health and safety. But yeah, that was my sort of model of freedom and joy. And I walked in to see my brother get his eyes tested when I was 12, and thought, wow, that's cool. I'm going to do that. And again, never questioned it. Went to university. You know, I didn't even need to have the meeting with the careers counselor. It was basically like, right, what do you want to do? I'm going to go do this. This is what I've got to do. And she's like, oh, great. You know, move along. And then not getting in, I briefly questioned it. I was like, well, maybe I'll be an engineer. And then I didn't do that. I went and carried on with science, and got to the end of that. And it was like, oh, you could do honours next year, or if you don't, or you could get into optometry. And that was still a question mark. And then I was like, well, if I don't get in, maybe I'll just be a builder, be outside. By that stage, I was like, I don't want to be a science teacher. My dad had quit teaching, so I knew that, you know, teaching was about paperwork and lesson plans, and not so much about imparting things. And yeah, it was like, maybe I'll be a builder, and that way I can work outside and create. And then my motivation for that was actually, I'll play rugby. but yeah, then I got into optometry, and yeah, like you, it's 4 more years of hard work and exam after exam, and in my case, getting B's, and so just feeling mediocre and being broke, and all the things that come with that, living in a city, and relationships not working, and all this sort of stuff.
Yes.
And then you get into the pinnacle. It's like, here's your little room. Go work in that little room. And
Yeah.
again, with optometry on a personal health basis, is kind of like have all these ideas and have all these things that you want to tell the patient, but no, you've got a period of time, and fundamentally you're there to help them get the right thing so they can get a pair of glasses.
Yes.
That's what they expect anyway. And
Yes.
you're right, you have those moments, and it's been the whole time, and probably why I've changed jobs so many times, and where I'm at now, I'm in the most happy with what I'm doing. But still, I get those people that say, "Why aren't you a doctor?" Or, "Whoa, I didn't expect that." And it's like, well, I'm here to help you, to look after you, and this isn't about glasses. This is about you as a person. And I often wonder whether the career I've chosen actually has the capacity to deliver that. And I suppose it's the same
Yes.
with law. It's like you said, the question of, am I giving to whatever my reach is, or am I capable of more?
Totally. Did you experience any improvement going from being an employee for somebody else to your own business, working for yourself?
Well, I haven't got that far yet. And that was sort of the decision to move to Hawke's Bay, was that, hey, I've got to stop being an employee. I've got to try take the reins with somewhere. And so I looked at a number of places, and came here with that possibility. Now, what all this current situation means for that possibility, God knows. But and what optometry and personal space obstruction in my job is going to be going to look like, who knows? But yeah, and then I've also sort of found that is now my motivation for being a director, to create income and leverage to then go on and buy a farm. Or is it possible to just do that now?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it goes to that paradoxical life of telling people to get outside, eat healthy, move, and here's me sitting in a dark room on a chair in front of a computer screen.
Yeah. Oh, and there's so many hybrid mixes of that you could make, where you potentially do that for some of your time, and more outdoors sort of work on the other days. There's so many different possibilities, and yeah, we are in a great time with technology, because we can connect and offer our services and communicate through the internet and by other means. So that is good news. I definitely found the shift from working for someone else to working for myself to scratch some of that itch, because it is creation, and the business aspects of I was looking at it. So we've come full circle for me. I've been in business 10 years on my own, and it was born in the GFC when I was made redundant. I was working for a larger practice, and when the GFC hit, I was doing property law. All the property work dried up, and I got made redundant. And around the same time, my wife at the time was in a head-on collision on the highway here on the Sunshine Coast, and she was nearly killed. So we went from having 2 incomes to no income, and she was in intensive care. She had a 3-month recovery process. She had a stroke, lots of problems. So that was a really tough situation, and I decided to create the business in amongst all of that, because I could be at home, I could have flexibility. But the overriding desire was to not have my fate in someone else's hands anymore. And when I got let go, the firm I was in, there was about 40 people, there was 5 of us in our round of being made redundant. The firm everybody came together in the middle after the announcement, and they made like a rugby tunnel. You know, when you run off the field and the opposition makes a tunnel for you to run through and you congratulate each other on the game. Well, the firm made a tunnel for us 5 to walk through, and we shook everybody's hand and said goodbye. And I remember feeling so powerless, and that someone else decided my fate, and I never wanted to feel like that again. So I had this insatiable hunger to start my own business as a result of that. And I started in a really hard time because it was the GFC, but having the maneuverability of a laptop and using those boundaries and constraints of low budgets, but I was able to move around. I found a little niche and I got going and got traction, and that eventually grew into what is now my larger business that has an office and staff and everything else. So, and here we are again, a global economy atom bomb has just gone off, and it's really exciting because I've been here once before, and there's going to be all these amazing opportunities for people who are hungry. And sometimes the best thing that can happen is you get sacked, you get made redundant, you get marched through that tunnel, and you see everybody else's faces, and you're the one that gets let go. And much like I saw it like the savannah, like the African savannah, and I was in a pride of lions where I was helping to hunt and take down the prey, and we would, I'd get the scraps. I'd get what was left over after the directors got the feed. And I got cut loose. I got kicked out of the pride. You know, I was a burden on the tribe. So they let me go, and I was out on the plains hunting by myself. And I realized I don't need to take down the buffalo. I just need a sick little elk, you know, initially, just a little one, just to have a nibble on. And it's just me, you know, and my family. So I took that mindset and started to scavenge. And yeah, there are a few beetles and cockroaches for dinner sometimes, but eventually I got traction and got going and created like a legitimate business that now has staff and, you know, premises and all the sort of hallmarks of a bricks and mortar business. So I'm now reviewing all of that again because of what's going on. And I'm really excited for a lot of people, because even though it's painful when you do get the heave-ho, that can be the birth of something incredible, and it can just light that fuse and that desire, which you need to hunt. So
that's awesome.
Does that make sense for you?
Shit, yeah. Man, you said about like your experience going through that GFC. How does it now feel to be responsible, like you say, for staff and buildings and things like that? Like what's the situation for you guys right now, in terms of ability to work, ability to congregate, ability to reach your clients?
It's slowing down at the moment. We're in the early stages of increasing levels of restriction. So we do a lot of property transactions. So real estate agents are being challenged to sell property. It's slowing down. So try to look after the team and keep them together as a priority. So there's a bit of a reprioritization of spending, and try to cut back on anything you can to keep the team together. That's a priority. Try to keep the clients happy. Identify any emerging opportunities that are now coming up, chances to offer new services to clients that weren't there before. So going through that sort of a process, and trying to keep the human element alive. I think it's try to treat people like they're people. So I know when I got made redundant, the line that was given to me was, "It's nothing personal, Aaron. It's just business." And that one stuck with me. It just echoed through my brain. It still does. I can still feel it. I just felt so useless, and just being clipped and let go like that, just, it felt horrible. So I think trying to keep the human element there, that's my priority at the moment. It's early days. I think things seem to be tightening up. So there's a lot of uncertainty. I'm not sure how it's all going to play out, but all we can do is our best to keep things rolling, and then get creative. Like, well, what else can I be doing in the downtime? So, yeah, I'm starting to put my thinking cap about, side hustles, other things that I could be creating with the extra time I have. So that's probably where my head's at the moment.
And have you been at, what's the story with your Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu? Where's that placed?
Oh man, that is the hardest hit aspect of my life. Like, social isolation hasn't really changed my routine that much, except for Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, because it's grappling, it's wrestling on the ground. It's very touchy-feely. You sweat and bleed on each other. So I am missing that. And there's only so much solo drilling you can do at home, and you can stay fit and you can drill, but that interaction with another human being and their body, that is the thing I miss most at the moment. Aside from my family, of course, I miss seeing my mum and dad and my brothers and sisters and my nephews. So, and a few friends. But yeah, my jiu-jitsu family, I'm missing them immensely. And I've got a grappling dummy here, Morgan. So I cuddle him. It's just not the same, without a heartbeat.
Yeah. And the ability for him to move and potentially lock you up to tap you out.
Yeah, it's not the same. But yeah, that'll come back. There's things you can do. Again, you've just got to adapt and keep yourself fit, work on what you can, and yeah, it won't stay like this forever. So one thing I'm working on is some injuries.
Mm-hmm.
I've got a few little, my fingers from jiu-jitsu is very hard on the fingers. So I've got some, some calcification and some little bit of sort of early signs of arthritic fingers. So from all the gripping on the gis. So I'm trying to get those better. It's a good chance to let them rest, let them heal, work on those. Just working on a little knee, got a bit of a knee aggravation, so doing some rehab for that. Yeah, it's just a great opportunity to get your body fixed if you train with things. As coming from a rugby background, you probably know most athletes through a season, they're dealing with injuries. They're living with them all season long, and having a good break can let you, get things right. So you got to look at the upsides, and that's the upside. And when we come back, hopefully, you're stronger for it.
Yeah. So in your training, you're very much range of motion. Do you find that is advantageous? Do you find it's stabilizing? How does it contrast to how you would have normally approached training and being strong and able?
As in changes to my training over time, or
yeah.
Well, I came from a rugby background and played league until I went to university, and then I played union through uni, and then after uni for a few years. And yeah, like a lot of people, you have a serious injury that sidelines you for a season, and then you just fall out of it. And I was in my mid-20s when I dislocated my shoulder, fell out of it, and then because work had started for me, training twice a week and playing every weekend just started to be inconvenient, and the time off for injuries and the expense of getting treatment when you're in the early stages of your career just didn't suit me anymore. So I started off just continuing with the strength and conditioning work that we did at rugby. I was familiar with lifting weights and my goal is I played halfback.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, I'm about 75 kilos and my goal was to always be bigger. So playing rugby, I was trying to get up into the mid 80s. So I carried a lot more weight than I do now, but you need it out there. So it's weird because I stopped playing footy, but then I still kept the same mindset around training, which was get bigger, get bigger, get bigger. And then after a while, I got some injuries from the powerlifting and heavy weightlifting that I was doing. And I realized, oh, I actually don't need to do this anymore because I'm not playing rugby and I don't need to be super as big as my frame will take. So it was a couple of injuries that made me kind of reorientate my thinking towards more of a movement-based physical practice, and coming across the work of Ido Portal was hugely influential on me because I saw his gymnastic capabilities. His body weight strength was insane in different ranges. He had sort of some capoeira acrobatics going on, incredible flexibility, and yet he looked jacked and ripped. So I've been pursuing more of that movement culture orientated physical practice for the last 5 years. A lot of hand balancing, some acrobatics, some tricking, some capoeira inspired soft locomotion work on the ground, and some gymnastic strength training. And that's really been a huge focus for me, and it's improved my mobility incredibly. I'm lighter, but lean, and your body just kind of sheds what it doesn't need. And I really enjoy feeling super strong, but also just lean and you know, only as heavy as my body needs. So that's a nice change exiting rugby. Although it messes with the ego because you sort of shrink down a little bit and you feel, there's like a power aspect to being big. Mm-hmm. So you kind of let go of that. But getting in and out of the car, going upstairs, just picking up the kids, everything's a bit easier because I'm a bit freer.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I look at the photos of the best condition I was ever in for rugby, and I'll preface that, or not preface, whatever it is, suffix that was for rugby, and that was 102 kgs doing a 19.5 yo-yo, and yeah, look at like you say, the power and the build that I had then to now where I can look at the mirror. I'm still strong. I'm still lean. I'm still muscular, but I jump on the scales and it's 85 kgs, and you go, holy cow, where's 17 kgs gone? But yeah, when it comes to hunting and going bush, carrying a pack, climbing a mountain, you go, well, I'm glad I'm not lugging up another 15 kgs here because, like you say, it's not useful anymore. And
yes,
and yeah, the range of motion, bending down, picking up children, and carrying stuff around, and being, agile and mobile in different positions is also really, really fun, and also not waking up on a Sunday with every single muscle in your body in tension is also really lovely.
Yeah, and it's pleasing that there's a shift now, I think, in what's cool, because when we grew up, it was Arnold Schwarzenegger and Sylvester Stallone and Jean-Claude Van Damme and these guys, and they were all very big, muscular guys. And so I think the pop culture of, when we were teenagers and growing up was to get massive. And at any cost. And you didn't care about how functional it was, because it was made out that that would get the girls and the respect, you know. And I think playing rugby too, it was helpful to be bigger. So I'm glad now, though. I think there's a big general shift out there in the fitness community, back towards body weight orientated strength and being lean. And that's coming in very handy now as people are social distancing and they're at home. They can't go to the gyms. There's a lot you can do with your body weight. And hand balancing is just this never ending rabbit hole to go down. It never ends. You can just keep going down that until you're on one arm, and then there's all these one arm variations, and you can there's people that devote their lives just to being on their hands, and it's you can never be bored just with your own body, and that's the beauty of it. So when you do find yourself alone and moving to this place on my own, I'm never bored. There's always something you can be doing, and the detail that you can discover in something like a handstand, that people can spend lifetimes devoted to it and never quite ever reach the bottom of that rabbit hole. Blows my mind. So I think it's that level of curiosity that can make your life so much richer, if you can find it with whatever interests you and just dive deep and just keep diving deeper and deeper and deeper. And it gives you so much meaning and connection. And I'm trying to do that with many aspects of my life now, because it just makes it better.
You brought up Jean-Claude Van Damme there. Mate, I've got images of him doing the splits across two chairs. What was that movie where he cuts his thumbprint off to escape off the island?
Oh, was that... Oh, I don't know that one. Was that Universal Soldier or...
No. I need a Jamie, like Joe Rogan has.
Yeah, Jamie, look that up. Man, well, he had incredible mobility, didn't he? His flexibility was great.
The other image I have of him is like standing on one foot with his other foot like vertical in the air, and him sort of spinning around and then doing like kicks from his knee as well. Yeah, Jean-Claude Van Damme, I think he's maybe the wrong hero. He should be around again now. I'm sure he's still a freak now. Like that guy was amazing.
Well, I think he. Have you seen him lately? Have you seen?
No.
Yeah, he had a little bit of trouble with cocaine.
Oh, right.
So he's paid a heavy price for that. And I think he went a bit off the rails. I think he has some mental health issues as well, and no doubt the drugs hasn't helped it. But my favourite film there was Kickboxer. Was one of the first ones I saw with him, where he was in Thailand training with that Thai kickboxer teacher in the jungle. And he had that underground fight at the end where they wrapped his hands and they put glass. They put these like bindings into this wax, and they put glass on it, and they fought in this underground sort of dungeon. Bloodsport was another great one.
Yeah. It just was far-fetched, and like, you know, me being a few years younger, it was one of those ones that I was always excited to watch, but the parents sort of were like, "Oh, now that's too violent." Yeah.
I actually read a rumor, and I don't know if this is true, that he was the original guy that they put inside the Predator suit when they made Predator with Arnold Schwarzenegger. He was the original actor that was cast to wear the Predator outfit, but he kept trying to do his spin kicks. He kept trying to do his karate. In the Predator outfit, and the director was like, "What are you doing? You're an alien from outer space. We don't think he knows Chinese martial arts or Japanese martial arts. Like, move more alien-like." And Jean-Claude Van Damme got really upset and was like, "I need creative control of the Predator. I want to make him move how I want to make him move." And apparently they had a big blow up, and he quit or he got fired, and and they had to get someone else, all because he wanted to do karate in the Predator outfit. So I don't know if that's true or not, but it's hilarious. And apparently he went on to be notoriously difficult to work with. And so now you'll notice he makes a lot of his own films, and he produces them and directs them all himself, and they just go straight to the $2 DVD bin. And they don't even get to the cinema anymore because I think he's no one will work with him.
He's blacklisted. Yeah.
Yeah.
They needed to go see Harvey Weinstein, baby.
Yeah. But yeah, he had great mobility. So and he looked amazing. So he was one of my heroes. I mean, Bruce Lee's probably the ultimate, right? And more recently, Jackie Chan. That guy is just incredible. One of my all-time movement heroes. His parkour, his own stunt work, his flexibility, strength. That guy's one of the most complete athletes going, and he's hilarious. So, I love watching Jackie Chan.
What is that? When he's with Chris Tucker. What's it? What are those movies?
Yeah, Rush Hour.
Rush Hour. Yeah.
Yeah. You understand the words coming out of my mouth?
Oh dear. I don't know if they could make that movie now.
That's hilarious.
I guess
just you put two minority groups like that together, and it's so funny, the combination.
No, it's cold. We did BJJ show up for you. Did you do martial arts growing up or no?
No, I did a little bit of judo in high school for a little bit, but mostly rugby. And then, I don't know, man. I think listening to Rogan and the UFC really taking off, and the Gracies dominating the cage fighting with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I was curious about it, and then I heard Rogan and a few others really explain the benefits of it, and so I got curious. And there was a school that opened up near my office, and they offered lunchtime classes, so I could go in at lunch at 1:00 and just grapple for an hour. I took one class and I got destroyed by everybody. And there was a young girl there. She was 16, and she choked me and tapped me out. And I was legitimately trying to not die. And I was just blown away. And this is a pretty common story for anyone that's tried jiu-jitsu. Playing rugby, I felt very physical. I'd had punch-ups on the field. I'd been in fights, like scuffles.
That's
I'd never been in a
halfbacks, man.
I know. Well, I'd start it and then let the big guys finish it. One in, back away. And I had this assumption that I guess I'd be okay in a fight if one ever really happened. And it's just complete ignorance because I'd never really been tested. And I got into this school, and people with 6 months training could kill me, and who were physically way less stronger than me. And a 16-year-old girl, I was way stronger than her, yet she compromised my life, and it terrified me, and I was hooked. So I came back, and it was a baptism of fire for the first year, just getting whooped. And I remember a couple of times I left, I thought I was going to cry. I actually thought I was going to cry because I felt so useless, and you're getting ragdolled around by people. So it's a super steep learning curve. It's very hard sport that just seems to take time to get to know. There's so many subtleties, like these invisible subtleties that you can't see because I've got 2 arms and 2 legs. You've got 2 arms and 2 legs. What are you doing that I'm not? And it's hard to even see it. And it's very visceral and cerebral, and you've got to get in there and actually do it. So that's what really attracted me to it. And I still haven't been in a fight out in the street to test my skills. I'm feeling more terrified than ever, because you realize, you get to know, there's this sort of like underground, there's a bunch of jiu-jitsu guys that are very, like, for want of a better word, like geeky or nerdy. And they're actually kind of not, they don't look like your classic, like rugby alpha athletes. And yet they're so good, and they will kill you in 20 seconds. So that's been fascinating too, to interact with different subcultures of people, and all walks of life do it. And you can go as hard as you can, and both people walk away afterwards okay. So, I remember when I was 16 and I got to play up and train with the first graders playing rugby, and I remember the difference in how hard they hit the pads. Like, you're holding pads, the tackle pads, and they're coming at you. The difference in how hard those guys hit. I remember the first hit I took was like nearly dislocated my shoulder. I was, oh my gosh. And like, rugby, you can't quite go full, you can't belt each other as hard as you can. You kind of got to go easy in a way. And you can't quite simulate the actual game when you're practicing, or people are going to get hurt. Whereas at jiu-jitsu, you can go as hard as you can, and both people walk away afterwards. So that's pretty freaking cool. And yeah, that's what's kept me there, I think.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, I have had that moment where it's holding the pad and doof. Oh shit! this is what this is going to be like. Oh man. Yeah. And I guess the beauty of that, having done a small level of boxing, at least with jiu-jitsu, you don't walk away with blood splattered all over your face. There might be the odd cut and things like that, but like you said, you can walk away shaking hands, whereas you walk away from boxing a bit dazed and confused in a bad way.
That's it. The school I train at, they also do some MMA, but it's mostly jiu-jitsu. And there was a timetable change. They changed the schedule recently, and I arrived for class, and they changed the time. And there was a kickboxing class on instead of the jiu-jitsu class. And they said, oh, well, you're here now, just jump in. And I'd never held pads before or done any striking. And so I held the pads, and the first guy started kicking it. And it was terrifying. Like, I thought my hip was going to break. I thought my leg was going to break. And this is with a big, thick pad I'm holding it. I'd seen it on TV. I'd seen it on YouTube and on training montages for films and for UFC. And until you hold that pad and you feel how hard those guys kick and hit, you've got no clue what sort of power is involved. And I mean, I had that adrenal fight or flight fear, just cold sweat holding pads for people. It freaked me out. So I'm yet to really explore the striking arts. But generally, when I get that level of terror, there's something there worth exploring. So I definitely like to jump in and do a few more classes there. But for now, the jiu-jitsu has been a great world to dive into. And again, you can never reach the end of it. It's unlimited. So it's great. You can compete if you want, or you could be like a corporate kind of weekend warrior guy like me and jump in, do a few lunchtime classes and, train 3 or 4 times a week, just socially for fitness and for fun, bit of self-defense. You can sort of specialize. You could become one of these leg locker guys and go for legs, or you got to develop your own style. There's a belt system, obviously, so you can kind of work your way up the levels. It's both genders. So you wrestle with women, which is kind of weird too, right? Like my first week, and this 16-year-old girl like opens her legs up and is like, come on, we're drilling, and I've got to mount her, which to me is like a sex position. Her mom's sitting right there. I'm like, is this shit cool? Like, what are we doing here? And then I was like, oh, that was weird. And then you do it with a dude, it's even weirder, right? And the dude opens his legs. He's like, come on, get in. And so it breaks down all these barriers
Mm-hmm.
about physical touch. And for me too, having just come through my separation, I realized I was missing human contact. I was missing touch. And you get a lot of it at jiu-jitsu, and even men cuddling you and wrestling you it's all non-sexual, but I don't know, I think we really feed off each other. And so this is going to be a really interesting phenomena that we're all experiencing, being socially distanced right now and isolated, because I know it really revived me and helped me so much to get into that wrestling environment and touching people again. So how is this current phase of being inside a lot and away from people going to affect our mood and how we feel?
Yeah, I'm definitely noticing my energy systems. I'm an extrovert, and I'm, in terms of love languages, quality time and physical touch. So no wonder I'm starting to find some weaknesses in my barriers, or my tools. It's my essence is basically being taken away. So that's why I've been pumping out podcasts, because it's a very it might be quite introverted, but I'm getting so much energy out of the stories and conversations and lifetimes of other people, which start to build me up again. So it's fascinating. On the yin side of this, yin side of this yang, the intense jiu-jitsu, it can equally take you to scary places, but the breathwork and meditation aspect of your life, it does go with yin and yang, because it's that white space, but there's the black in the middle. What sort of things show up for you? Where do you get some darkness in your white time?
Yeah, absolutely. So I really am coming to appreciate more and become more devoted in my own life to the polarity of everything you do. So if you do strength work, you need to do mobility work. And if you do too much of one and not the other, it creates imbalance. And that manifests in usually pain and suffering. So that goes beyond the physical. And the breath work and meditation has been huge for me in doing some of the inner work to complement the outer work that we do. So what I do in the physical and with my work, with my job, relationships, I need to balance with my inner world and the inner work that I do. So I started to explore meditation to cope with some anger management issues I was having. It's almost like in my old life, I was struggling with anger and some overusing alcohol to try and treat that, which was just not a great combination, not a great mix. So I started learning transcendental meditation after reading a book by Russell Brand, who's a recovering drug addict and alcoholic. And he mentioned the power of meditation was incredible for his own healing and giving him somewhere to go inside where you can feel at peace, and then bring that into your outer world and whatever you're doing. So that's been, I guess, my foundational meditation style, which I've since added to with experimenting with other techniques. And then I went to a Wim Hof retreat about 4 or 5 years ago and got to hang out with the Iceman, Wim Hof, for 4 days and jump into ice tanks, and was introduced to Wim Hof breathing. And that I've pretty much been doing that almost daily ever since. And what I loved about the breath work was you get a physiological change and a brain chemistry change, a release of dopamine, serotonin, all these sort of feelings that I would link to taking drugs. So you can feel high through just through the breath. And it can induce psychedelic states, psychedelic experiences, almost like mystical kind of realizations. And again, it's all this inner work. So I've been combining the two more recently, doing breath work and meditation. And I've got an ice tank here at home that I jump in as well, because that's one of the quickest ways to get you out of your head and into a deep state of presence. There's nowhere to hide in the ice, and you get in that, and it's shock initially, and you just have to be there. You have to let go of all the thoughts, the worry, the fear, all of that disappears, and you just center into this deep, peaceful center of yourself, which feels amazing. And you get out, and all it takes is a few seconds of that shift, of that distance from your problems and everything else, to give you a little bit of peace, and then everything starts to lift and feel better. So very, very important for me. And as you say, it's the inner that complements the outer. So you got to put as much energy into that as you do the outer. And you can do that through meditation and breath work.
Yeah. That might be the key. So was your Wim Hof retreat where Guy Lawrence and Keegan Smith and those sorts of guys were?
Yes. Yeah. I met Guy Lawrence at the retreat. And I've stayed friends with him ever since. The bonds we made with the people in that group have lasted. So it's like you go through something with people, like these special occasions. And I only spent a few days with these guys, but the bond it's created, it's lifelong, and you connect on a deep spiritual level that transcends time and space. Pardon me. So I've stayed in touch with most of those people from that one retreat. And it's weird how much you can connect with somebody in such a short period of time, compared to, I don't know, I've had coworkers for years, and you don't really even get to know them that well, and yet you can spend a few hours with someone and be lifelong friends because you've just connected on such a deep level, and you get each other. And so I've always, I'm still in touch with all of those guys from that one retreat, like 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah, that's so funny. So who have I had? I've had Keegan, Guy, Mark Cluer, Dee Gladstone, Josh Coleman. These five guys all at that retreat, and now yourself. So that makes sense. How the hell I started following you, and probably the why. Anybody that was willing to go to that, I think I was like, these are amazing people. Well, on an amazing journey anyway. And yeah, following you has been fantastic.
Well, that was, there was about 30 of us there, and, I met, probably the coolest moment in that retreat was on day one. I was laying next to Mark Cluer, Tiger. And for anybody who is unfamiliar with him, he's this looks like sort of a Viking warrior type guy with
big beard, long hair,
like a pirate. He's like a pirate, right? Big beard, and he like a real tough guy. And he's got a few tats, and he's a super fit man, like a really strong, masculine dude, like
construction worker,
like. And I met him, and he's like, "How you fucking going, mate?" Like, that's how he talks. Like, "Oh, how is it? It's fucking grouse here, isn't it? Oh, what a fucking grouse setup this is." And I'm like, "That's this is a tough, manly man."
Yeah.
And we're day one. We start doing this breath work. 30 of us on the ground with Wim Hof, and he has this you know, he has this release, this opening. He was howling, like just had this incredible moment where, and initially, like the noise coming off him, you know, I'm doing my breathing, like I'm trying to focus, I'm trying to get centered, and he's making all this noise, and I'm like, what the fuck's going on over there? I wish this guy'd shut up so I could like focus. He's ruining my moment. And in the end, we just had to let him go, and he just had like this, you know, I was sort of just opened my eyes, and I'm just watching him. There was something happening to him. Like he was like a miracle that happened right beside me. And there was something coming off him, like a feeling, and the whole room just filled with it. And it's like having it's like sort of a godlike moment, like this full on opening, and you can feel it. And just the breath induced it, and it blew my mind. And ever since then, he's now doing ice baths and breath work, and I think he'll say it changed his life forever. And you know, he developed this friendship with Wim Hof, and just such an inspiring character. And it was such a privilege to be there in that moment when you have this awakening. So it was something I'll never forget. And yeah, so I've always stayed in touch with those guys, and they're such characters.
Yeah, I owe a lot to Mark. He invited me up to the Gold Coast when I was in Ballina, and I had pretty much the same experience. He said I was roaring. I sort of came to again with him standing over me, but he had an aura around him. I sort of was seeing this, you know, he already looks like a godlike figure, as you said, but I was seeing this godlike figure. I was seeing, you mentioned psychedelic imagery, where I had pyramids and eyes and sort of, I don't know, I think it's Hindu figure, like a narrowed person in lotus position imagery. I had imagery of a shipwreck, which is basically one of the ancestral stories that I know about my family, of them coming up from Ireland and missing the port and running aground. And so it was, like I said, this massive release and possibly ancestral trauma release. And yeah, again, like Mark, it's something that's changed my life and changed my outlook and changed who I am. And yeah, I just have this huge respect for him. And I messaged him this morning as well and asked him how he was going with the sweat lodge up there at Elevated Plains in Victoria. And he said should be done by the middle of the year. And I said, I'll see you at the end of the year, mate, because yeah, it's going to be a special place. Sweat lodge, ice baths, big shed, gym. It's going to be a cracker, and I can't wait to see that done. And it's something that I want to create here somehow. But yeah, he's an awesome dude, and yeah, it's cool to hear. I've heard him tell the story, and he's told the story on this podcast, but to hear someone's observation of it is pretty powerful.
Yeah, it's amazing. A real privilege to witness, and that's incredible that he's then passed that on and held space for you to have a similar awakening. And that's just so fascinating that you're able to get that imagery and those visuals in such a psychedelic way, just from the breath. It always blows my mind. It's incredible that you can induce that state through breathing. And we're so powerful. And we just forget that when we get very literal and stuck in just the one plane of seeing life in the third dimension. But there's so much going on a deeper vibrational level. So it's just so cool when you get to witness something like that happen, and to experience it yourself is even more incredible.
Yeah, I think I had the perfect sort of situation go on the day before I listened. You mentioned Russell Brand. I listened to Russell Brand and Wim talk, and Wim was identifying the chakras that Russell has tattooed on his body, and they they mentioned that that's the potential with Wim Hof breathing. And I think at that stage, Russell Brand hadn't done it by then, but he'd done Kundalini breath work. And they went through 2 rounds, and I sort of did it with them listening to the podcast, and felt a bit lightheaded. And I was like, oh, yeah, tomorrow's going to be fun. And then that night I spoke to Dean Gladstone and Mark, just sort of as a preempt. And then come the Sunday, I was sort of there with zero expectation at all, and ready and open, I guess, was the thing. And you know, like, that's one of the mantras that Wim and his practitioners reinstill when I was listening to him this morning as well, is that fully in, let it go. And same with Guy with his meditation practice. It's about letting it in, letting go. It's that message of being open. And then so with the room, the energy, the story, and then the practice, it was just hugely moving. And this is why I try and bring it up. You know, you don't want to be evangelical about it. I don't necessarily think it's for everyone. And I think if you are going to be trying it, you know, it's a bit like the conversation that is around the psychedelic resurgence. It's like, hey, just wait on a moment. This is something to be taken very, very seriously, and you might not like where you go and what it shows you, but if you can be open and prepared and ready, then this might take you on a different path. And it's the same with any self-improvement. There's going to be resistance from yourself and from others, and it's the moment you start, you're on a new journey, you're on a new path, you're picking a new way to go.
Absolutely. I think the person holding the space can be very relevant and very important, and their intention, and them being fairly clear and fairly neutral, so that they can let you have your experience and just let you let go and do your work, and not impose any expectations on them. So after that retreat, I got very interested in psychedelics and psychedelic states. And talking to Guy Lawrence, he had done ayahuasca, and I was just really curious about it, because I'd had visionary experiences through the breath work myself, and just kept hearing more and more about ayahuasca. So I was sitting here on my couch one day, actually, and I had the feeling that I was going to do ayahuasca. And so I found a place in Costa Rica, Rhythmia, and I just booked a trip on my own to go and do a week there. And I ended up, I did a lot of research and decided that would be the safest place for me to go and do it. And I liked the idea that it was not in the jungle and too remote in a tent or anything. It was in a sort of a Western facility, like a resort that I was familiar with and would be comfortable with on my own. And they had a medical team there too, with doctors and nurses and a psychologist to help you just in case. And that all gave me enormous comfort. And then the shaman were also carefully selected to be neutral and hold the space. They were well-trained people that had spent decades as apprentice shamans and working with the medicine. And so off I went to do that. And that too was incredible. And some of the things I witnessed there were similar to seeing Mark have his awakening. Seeing people have all sorts of openings in that setting was incredibly psychedelic and incredibly healing and powerful. So, I'm seeing connections between all these different modalities and disciplines. And I think ultimately they're all heading to the same place, which is just greater harmony in your own life, and this convergence of your inner and outer worlds and how you operate through life. And the more you can have them overlap and flow, the more enjoyable and meaningful life is.
Absolutely. What did you do to prepare for that experience? I'm just going to find it here. Where are you, Tim Ferriss? Not him. That's who it was. It was Jack Cornfield. The other day they were talking about how prior to a journey you should really be meditating every single day for 30 days, possibly even 60 days, going into it to prepare and be familiar with some uncomfortable feelings that might come up. What did you do to prepare? You said you researched a lot.
Yeah.
What did you do?
Yeah. Well, for people that don't know, ayahuasca is a vine that grows in the Amazon jungle in South America, and it's combined with another plant and brewed up into a sludge. You would call it a green, thick, sludgy liquid that you are given by a shaman in a little cup, and you drink it, and it then induces very powerful psychedelic experiences and visions. It's a hallucinogenic, and the initial starting phase of after you ingest this medicine is you purge, so when you go to this place, they give you a bucket and a roll of toilet paper and a mattress to lay down on, and you can expect to purge, which could be out the back end, or vomiting. So it's not very pleasant, that aspect of it, and some of that can be minimized through preparation for the experience through a diet. So they recommend that you go vegetarian or plant-based for a couple of weeks leading in. So I just reduced my meat. I didn't go full vegetarian, but I just reduced the red meat down. No alcohol, no coffee for a couple of weeks. You basically want to clean yourself as much as possible to reduce the impact of the purge. For some people, that's not possible because there were drug addicts, alcoholics, people that had really tough psychological disorders and diseases that required heavy medications. So in my group, there were people that had all sorts of problems, and they were going there for therapy and treatment. So, I was chatting to one alcoholic he had the most violent purging. He just unbelievable vomiting and diarrhea initially, but once he got through that, you can lay down or sit up, and you start to either see. You can put your eyes. You can close your eyes and have incredible internal visionary experiences, or you can even start to see things as though you're seeing them like reality. So there's interactions with. It's different for everyone, and when you get there, they sort of say, look, on your last day, the new guests will arrive. Please don't tell them exactly what happened to you, because that might then, they might develop expectations around their visions. But for me, there was interaction with deceased relatives. I saw parts of the future. I interacted with, I don't know, it felt like celestial beings, stuff that just blew my mind. And we did it 4 nights in a row, 6 to 8 hours each night. I think on the final night, it was closer to 12 hours in that sort of vision space. The whole time you're going plant-based diet, eating really well, keeping yourself clean, no alcohol or they say no sex, no alcohol, no coffee, no drugs. So they say to try and try and not choke the chicken, and try and not masturbate. Try and leave your little monster alone.
Yeah. No escapism, eh?
Yeah, no escapism, no sort of pleasure seeking as comfort. You've just got to sit with it and process trauma and do your healing. So yeah, it was deeply therapeutic. And in between, you know, during the day there you could relax and recover. There was some metaphysical lectures you could listen to, go for a walk, get a massage, that sort of thing. It's called it was at Rhythmia, and it was a life advancement sort of week where just take a week to just work on your health. And that involved a lot of internal work. So yeah, that blew my mind. And that was the deepest I've gone into that psychedelic space, and life-changing for sure, because you start to think, well, how much of this stuff's happening all around me all the time that I just can't see with my own eyeballs because they don't detect, you know, and this probably comes into your optometry world. Like the eyeball's only interpreting some of the light, some of the frequencies that are happening around me. And there's actually a lot more going on than I can see. And through the brain chemical changes that these hallucinogenics invoke, you can start to see different things and feel stuff. And the moon looks different, and the light off the stars feels different. And everything's so luminous and bright, and people look incredible. And you can see this vibrancy in people. You can see their spirit. So it just changes how you can see the world. And then you integrate that back into your life, and you take a little bit of that with you. And then through your meditation, your breath work, you can keep it up. So
yeah, it's powerful. I think you were saying about the vision. I think from my ideas and understanding, I think that a lot of what you see is modulated, and what these chemicals do is create double negatives. So they inhibit the inhibitors and allow that massive flow of information. And so that's why all of a sudden it's seeing and interpreting everything on a greater level. The brain and the eyes being an extension of the brain and our nervous system is all about modulation. And that's why these substances appear to enhance and create this gigantic, it's sometimes overwhelming flow. And the same with the Wim Hof method, that alkalizing of the body, that increasing of sensation can get to this state where there's no inhibition, and it overflows, and you go to these places. Yeah.
it's awesome.
Yeah. Going full circle, back to children and family, when they're with you, you prioritize fun, it appears, and whether that's the trampoline or cartwheels or running around or racing around the property. Something that I've found, and my daughter's only 2 years old, but tapping into your own inner child and being uninhibited by a child's uninhibited life. What's your take on having kids and being a kid yourself again?
Well, the thing I love about it is you get to relive your own childhood if you're open to it. So all this stuff that brought you so much joy that you'd forgotten about, like building Lego or, you know, I realized I love Lego. I love helping my kids build it, and it brings back all these fond memories of being a child myself, and you get to relive all this beautiful stuff. So teaching them to surf and just seeing that joy when they stand up on the wave for the first time, it fills you with that stoke that you felt when you caught your first wave. I took my kids fishing for the first time last week, and my daughter caught a really nice brim, first cast, and seeing the exhilaration and fear on her face when the rod bent, and and it came in, and the sort of the panic that it invokes, and the excitement, and then pulling it in, and her screaming, and it actually frightened her a bit, but it was such a beautiful moment, and you get to relive all this stuff, because I remembered that moment I had with my father when I was a child. So it brings out your inner child if you'll let it. And I love playing with them. Doing cartwheels on the grass and jumping on the trampoline. It's fun, and it makes me feel good. And you get to bond with these little humans who are just experimenting with their bodies and gravity, and you can show them things and teach them things and give them little challenges. And I've just absolutely loved it. I've loved being a father. It's one of the greatest experiences you can have. So I feel blessed and so lucky to be in this role, and you get more out of it than you could ever give to it. So I only have good things to say about it.
Wicked, man. Mate, so we're in this open-ended time period of who knows what's going to happen. You already had some big plans for the year, so I would encourage people to watch this space with you, mate. Is Instagram your only spot, or is there other places that people can follow this journey, which I've been following for 4 or 5 years, it seems?
Yeah. At the moment, Instagram's the place to find me. Agrifforama is my handle. So I am planning to expand the work that I'm doing to share breathwork, meditation, and movement with other people. So that's in the early stages of planning at the moment, and I hope to roll out some services for people that I can get more involved in sharing and teaching that work with people, so they can have these incredible awakenings and these incredible experiences as well. Because once you've experienced it, you just want other people to experience it, and you want to share it so that everybody can feel as good as is possible. So at the moment, you can find me at Agrifforama on Instagram, but there will be new things coming very soon.
I mean, what's your vibe for that handle? It's obviously your two names together, Aaron Griffin, but
Aaron Griffiths, yeah. Man, I think it was actually when I first joined Instagram, I just had no clue. A friend sort of got me onto it as this picture sharing app, like 5 or 6 years ago. And I think I tried to put my name in, and it rejects you. It says, there's already somebody with that name. And then it came up with some suggestions or something. And I just, that'll do. So Agrifforama ended up being the handle, and I've thought about, I should change that to something else. And I just haven't come up with anything. So it's part laziness on my part, but I will. I've been coming up with new names for a new concept, that I can use. So it's a bit more descriptive of what it is I want to share.
No, it's bloody cool. That was a bit like when I created Stag Vision, which I ran for a long time. I had Stag Ryan, that was sort of hangover from Facebook, then Twitter, then Instagram. That's how I ended up on Instagram through Twitter. And then I created this other page, Stag Vision. And I was sort of starting off my fitness journey and recovering from surgery, and then that turned into the podcast. And then, so for a long time, the podcast was the Stag Raw, but this page was Stag Vision. So then I don't know what tweaked me to change it to the Stag Raw, but yeah, it's a lot more sort of in line, I think, and lots of fun, and it sort of gives direction to that page, whereas the sort of personal side of me is over on Stag Ryan, and it's kind of two lives, I guess, but it also fits in that way I want to project that I'm not in a box of one thing or the other. I'm quite fluid, and and adaptable and diverse. So yeah, it's lots of fun.
Oh, that's awesome, man. Yeah, I've been putting the brain. I've got some names that I'm looking at releasing. So I think I'll do the same thing and, create a new page for the breathwork, meditation and movement services, and sort of separate that away from my personal diary,
Yeah.
which is Instagram's for the time being, it's been a bit of a personal journey. My life as a lawyer and a dad, trying to use these modalities and practices to help me feel good. But yeah, in terms of offering those services to other people, I think I'll start up a new little page and maybe get a website and go the whole hog and start to roll that out later in 2020.
Awesome. I'm so excited, man. Mate, what is something that you'd leave us with? I usually sort of frame that question as something that continues to show up in your life, or something that never seems to do you wrong when you follow it, or even a quote that you live your life by.
Meditation for me, it's so funny how I forget how good you can feel. And I'll meditate some mornings, and then by the afternoon I get cranky, or something's not going right, and I lose it. And then I'll meditate again, and I'll feel so good, so peaceful, and I think, oh, how did I lose? How did I had it and I lost it? So I think just realizing that that's a process and that you can always access that place. You just have to slow down, sit down, take a moment, take some deep breaths, and just meditate. And that for me is a reoccurring thing that keeps showing up, and I've got to remind myself every day to do it, and it enhances your life so much. So I would leave people with that. Definitely check out and investigate meditation.
Wicked. Thank you so much, man. We spoke this morning after what was a whirlwind night for me, and I've done some Wim Hof and meditation and conversation, and got vulnerable with a few people, and it's awesome to then have this conversation. Like I said at the start, I sort of almost feel like you're a semi-spirit guide to me, mate. It's awesome to have you on it. And we originally planned to do this once everything was launched, but today seemed like a good day, and it was a fantastic conversation. And thank you so much.
Thank you, and no, I really appreciate that, and I can't wait to hang out in person one day.
Absolutely, man. I'm going to press stop. Cheers.
Thank you.